Tamil Nadu Governor R N Ravi spoke and in fact stoked a fresh controversy, remarking that the anti-Sterlite protests in the state in 2018 had been fueled by foreign funds and was aimed at hindering progress. His comment instantaneously drew an outcry from the ruling DMK and its allies. Governor Ravi claimed that donors sitting in foreign countries had sent money here for activities that were anti-national in nature. The governor was referring to the protests of May 22nd and 23rd, 2018 in Thoothukudi town against the proposed expansion of a copper smelter plant run by Sterlite Corporation over claims that the factory caused air, water and soil pollution that affected the health of local residents. Police opened fire on the protesters, killing 13 people and injuring 102. We'll talk about this with our guest. Joining us on the show is Mr. Jitendra K. Oja, geopolitical expert. Also joining us on the show is Mr. Ajay Dua, former Commerce Secretary, Government of India, senior economist. Last but not the least, Dr. Sharat Kohli, senior economist, also joins us on the program. Dr. Kohli, it is not a far-fetched idea that money could be sent to our country to, basically invoke such feelings and get people to protest and deem this kind of a project unfit for the environment. Why is everybody in shock?
Well, Vineet, let us understand this. Large funds can come into the country by three most popular routes. First route is when the funds come as share capital. Well, that of course is a company which comes under the FDI, the foreign direct investment, where the shares are allotted and you can obviously track them, you know who the owner is. The second way is external commercial borrowings, ECBs, where you need a prior RBI permission. Well, the third route, which is what we are talking about today, is the foreign contribution route, where, before there was strictness, before the government became very, very strict and stringent about getting money, the funds used to freely flow in. All you needed was an NGO here, and you said we are doing some charitable or some altruistic activity in the country. Probably you're looking after the children or looking after the women who've been, shunned by the society, or probably looking after a village and so on and so forth. So these funds used to flow in free. When finally the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act came in 2010, that is when things became more stringent, and then thereafter, I think the Home Ministry took cognizance of the funds coming into the country. So every time there was an anti-national activity being done in the country or an anti-national group of people acting against the country, raising slogans or doing activities against the national interest, it was found categorically, whether it was SFJ, PFI, there's so many organizations we can probably think and name off. When you went into the bottom of the problem, you found that they were being funded from abroad. There were sources abroad who were acting against India. Even as we talk today, we saw temples in Canada, in Ontario being vandalized. We hear of embassies being attacked. So there are always forces beneath which work against the country. And FCRA, or Foreign Contribution Regulation Act loopholes, were responsible, and Home Ministry now has become very strict. No funds in the garb of donations or in the garb of charitable activities are now allowed unless and until the government is very sure about the usage of funds. Who's the NGO first of all? Who's the sender? And coming down to this incident in 2018, if the governor is making this statement, we have all the reasons to trust that in 2018, when we know a company was supplying 40% of the copper requirements of the country, and that company comes under attack, there is a group of protesters who come and protest, there is police firing, there is violence there, and the company had to be shut down. In fact, it remains closed even till date. The company remains closed. So this categorically shows that there was a move under the garb that this is polluting, this is not environment friendly, and so, to probably stop or block the business activity which was leading to progress of the country, the progress of industry. We know copper is being used by industry extensively. So I think Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, as I know today, it is not easy. Even Melinda Gates Foundation, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has come under question. No NGO is being allowed to bring funds, but probably in 2018, something must have been slack or somebody must have brought. So I, personally speaking, Vinny, as far as this news thread is concerned, I think the statement given by the governor carries a lot of weightage. It has a lot of sense. It could have easily been funded by foreign funds, and the protest went on, because for conducting any kind of protest, you can never manage without funds. You need money, you need to gather people, you need to have resources, you need people to be sitting down there giving up their work, so you need to compensate those people, and so on and so forth. So I think I completely stand with governor's statement that there might have been involvement of foreign funds of the forces which were acting against the national interests of the country.
Absolutely. Mr. Dua, where do you stand on this? India obviously suffered a big jolt as a result of this shutdown. Copper is a mineral which is rather very high in demand. India wanted to, in fact, lead that industry because of Sterlite. But what happened now, it seems to be some sort of a conspiracy. And if a government official of that nature, like Dr. Kohli said, has affirmed this, or rather reaffirmed this, there should be some looking into.
Certainly, Vineet, I won't at all doubt it. The fact of the matter is that this is an incident of 2018, and the Governor Ravi was at that time not the governor of Tamil Nadu. There was a popular government there at that point of time, because Mr. Ravi, the governor, has come there only a year and a half ago. So it is an event preceding him when he was probably a governor in the Northeast. This revelation of his yesterday has come in a dialogue with the IAS officer trainees who had called on him, and there he has pointed out several things, including answered questions about the protests, about his disputes with the government of Tamil Nadu, and other matters for which he's been in the news, and he's an active governor, I must say that, having come from the IB, etc. So he could well be absolutely right about it. This information of 2018 has not been made public so far it is the IB reporting to the Government of India, or IB bringing it to the notice of the state government. So the IB would not report to the governor directly on it. So he must have learnt it because he comes from the IB, and he would have learned from somewhere, and he made use of it in the dialogue which he was having with the officer trainees. The matter is, now having given that background, I would only point out that yes, the FCRA Act all along had prohibited the foreign money being used for kind of foaming up any trouble in the country, and there is little evidence to deny that the smelter, when it had applied for expansion, instead of the expansion being granted, there were protests down south of Tamil Nadu, in any case, where Thoothukudi is located, but also elsewhere, and the police near the project had to fire, and 13 people died, with 100 odd people having been killed. And that since then, the best part of it is, since then, the project has not been revived. So obviously what was being pointed out about the project by the protesters or the others probably had a degree of truth. Otherwise, 4 years down the lane, in an essential item like copper, which we are heavily dependent upon imports, why wouldn't the plant be revived, at least to the capacity which was existing? The fact is that there is an issue there about environment, but that was not the business of a foreign contributor putting money there to protest and others. That if somebody is violated, that under the FCRA, the Act even earlier, as I repeat, provided for it being checked. The government is absolutely on the strong wicket, the federal government, to make sure that the FCRA, that the teeth there are applied to the organization in India and the people who were sending their money there. And I think there was a report that against a particular NGO, a foreign one operating in India, the government has already referred it to the CBI to take it to its logical end. That's absolutely fine, right, and it should be done. But all that I'm trying to say is, one, the governor, whether the governor should be saying it when he wasn't here at that point of time, and it is, the revelation might be right, absolutely. And second, why hasn't the plant been, if it were wrong, the protests were without a basis, why hasn't the plant been revived to the extent it existed, even in the 5th year after its closure?
Absolutely, absolutely. And Mr. Ojha, would you consider and categorize this, if it's true, as some sort of an attack that India needs to be vigilant towards, and it's perhaps not the only one in this nature?
Absolutely, Vinny. Somehow we have not drawn lessons from history, and we have been consistently targeted in various forms of covert warfare, not only targeting of scientists or high-value innovators, thinkers, as you say, but also high-value institutions. And you have already highlighted. Regarding governor's observation, I have absolutely no confusion that he must have had very strong basis to say something like this. But Vineet, even after 5 years, even if we are discussing it, you see, a lot of damage has already been done. That plant is lying closed down for quite some time. Country has lost out on copper as well as revenue. Our industries have suffered. And at this point of time, even if we carry out an investigation and we punish people, that is not going to resolve problem. We are living in a highly competitive world. So what we can do from this point of time is to enhance the quality of our regulations. And I've always been saying that we have been giving a lot of space. We have to realize that when Americans are complaining that some of their institutions have been hijacked through espionage and other means by Chinese intelligence, imagine where do we stand? We are in a very hostile neighborhood, and open societies in general concede a lot of space. But when your governance institutions are also very fragile and they give a lot of space, naturally, our adversaries are going to take advantage of it. And regarding China, their deceptive ways of working, we are very well aware of. And if we assume that they would only be fighting on the border, we are being very naive, Vineet. We all know that how industrial progress or social peace and everything is very critical component of national security. Here, what they have done, they have used our own resources, they have used our own people, they have bred social discord also, and managed to rather disrupt one particular industry. And if the entire outcome, if you rather evaluate, what is going to happen? This must have undermined investors' confidence as well, isn't it? So I think we have to take two things. Of course, this matter has to reach a logical conclusion. We have to come out of this bureaucratic mode, and we have to see that what preventive measures we can take, drawing lessons from this. And naturally, a deterrent punishment is also required in this direction. And thirdly, I would say that we need a major overhaul of institutions. This is not 1970s or 1980s era we are living in. 2020 plus is a different world altogether. So instead of letting something happen and then responding is definitely not the smart strategy we need.
Absolutely. Dr. Kohli, where do you stand on this, that we need a major overhaul of some of our institutions, especially some of the financial ones, which perhaps are vulnerable and susceptible to these donations, these frauds, and perhaps even these oversights?
Well, so far as I know, Vineet, as I told you earlier, that FCRA is very, very strict. I mean, so that I know that Home Ministry instructions on foreign donations, there is no compromise whatsoever, especially after the PFI and the SFJs. And the country has observed several protests and anti-national activities. As I told you, this was an easy escape route for funds to come in, where funds are coming in under the garb of, being altruistic, charity being done, as I said, welfare schemes being done. Having said that, I must mention here, Vineet, that there is a saying in Hindi, and I don't mind using it, कि गेहूं के साथ घुन भी पिसता है. I can tell you with conviction that a lot of genuine NGOs who were getting funds from abroad as genuine charitable contributions, they had to suffer as well, because it's very difficult prima facie to make out that if an NGO or if a foreign body is sending funds to India, whether it is actually altruistic or it is meant for some nefarious anti-national purpose. So because of that, the government had to crack down. The Home Ministry had, because, I remain in touch with the FCRA authorities and, the Home Ministry in this regard. So I can tell you that with a lot of confidence that genuine charitable contributions are also not being cleared very, very easily. So as a result, what is happening is that some of the charitable activities which are being carried out here from funds being received from abroad, or where the donors are willing to contribute for the upliftment or welfare of the society, even they are not getting through. It is taking months and months to clear because the government needs to investigate. Enforcement Directorate and other authorities, RBI, CBI, they need to investigate as to where are the funds coming from. Having said that, what has happened. In the past, as I said, and this is a classic case, if a protest in 2018 happened out of those funds, obviously the funds came in with little bit of surveillance. So therefore, coming back to your question, that whether the agencies or the institutions need an overhaul or the policies, FCRA, I'm very sure, as of today, because we moved on from there, it's been almost 5 years or 4.5 years since that incident happened in Thoothukudi. So I think from then to now, a lot of water has flown under the bridge, as they say, Vineet, and Home Ministry has become very, very strict today. I mean, somebody can try applying to FCRA for getting the funds for charitable purpose. Even if you're genuine, you will have to face dozens of questions before you are allowed, to get the funds in. So what some of the people are doing now is they are floating these charitable companies. Under the Indian Companies Act, there is a provision where you can float a company with a charitable objective. So they are trying to float the company with a charitable objective, which is again coming under scanner. So what they tried to do was they tried to float companies, commercial companies, but there the FDI guidelines come into the picture, because you are answerable to the government for the money that you're bringing in, that what is being applied for. So I think the monitoring can very easily be done, Vinny. If once the funds land in the bank account of that NGO, I think the NGO must report to the government on a concurrent basis. Right now the reporting happens afterwards. But if the reporting is done on a concurrent basis, I think the problem will be solved almost 90%, because they end up using the funds for wrong activities and later on they have to submit a return. By that time, as I said, a lot of things have happened, like incident like this can happen. But if a concurrent monitoring is done for these institutions, I think you can find the problem, the solution to the problem. In the meanwhile, I think FCRA's very strict guidelines continue to apply. And as we talk today, no NGO, no foreign body can very easily bring in funds and contribute to an Indian bank account or an Indian authority and say, okay, we are using it for this purpose. So therefore your question gets partly answered by the fact that the process is complicated, very strict, because I go through it almost on a weekly basis for some of the NGO, and I keep meeting the officials there as well. So I can tell you with conviction, Vineet.
All right. Mr. Dua, do you believe that an agency overhaul is the answer to these, threats which are not only imminent, but they have passed us by as well?
Vineet, I would rather emphasize the implementation of the strict act and the rules which provide for such strict monitoring to take place. One idea of which was floated by Mr. Kohli of concurrent auditing, concurrent reporting is a good one, saying that rather than wait for the misuse to have occurred and face the consequences, why not introduce in it that the utilization certificate of every NGO will have to be given on a quarterly basis, on a bi-monthly basis, make it stricter. I think that's possible under the given act itself. So instead of having to revisit the laws and get them amended, etc., which is a long process, I think the government does have the powers to be able to tighten the regulations which are under the delegated authority. That's number one. Number two, I think the involvement of the state police, etc., in monitoring. The monitoring by the state agencies through their district magistrates and others, wherever such money is being received, could also be helpful. I think today the district magistrates have been kept out of it totally, and probably district magistrates, not that they are missing this power, because they have far too much things to do. Far too many things to do. It is because now that we realize, and we have found it in a number of cases, that there is a misuse of such funds to foment trouble in India of the kind which we are discussing. I think tightening of the implementations right from downwards to all the way up to the Ministry of Home Affairs, which monitors this, is certainly called for.
Mr. Ojha, you have advocated radical changes in some of these agencies and institutions, but at the same time, there's nothing radical about changing the way something has worked for decades now. It has to be instituted slowly, but at what cost?
Definitely, this has to be instituted slowly. I agree with you, Vineet, because changes don't happen overnight, because even if you change the rule, old habits continue to persist. But still, I would differ from two previous panelists. Our objective should not be to delay things. There should not be a blanket oppression. So that is why I'm saying it's not only intent which is sufficient. You need very refined skills and capacities to deteriorate. And I've always said, my very esteemed previous panelists may disagree with me or may not like my comment. I have always said that we are having a 19th century model of bureaucracy in 21st century, and that is one of the biggest contradictions. So we have been carrying on with this because there's very little space for innovation and excellence, the kind of system we are having. And bureaucracy, in any case, everywhere does not provide you this kind of space. But we have to realize that we are living in a highly globalized world, and our adversaries are looking for ways and means. And if we continue to bring in all oppressive rules and laws within our own country, what is going to happen? We are going to choke our own people. So beneath, we have to develop sometimes global capacities to deter these people who even plan and do things. And that is not going to be very easy. This requires very, very specialized skills. It's not that you put a lot of people, you put a lot of rules and a lot of laws, and the whole problem will be resolved. As Mr. Kohli himself pointed it out, that even if you are setting up a genuine venture, you are going to face a lot of difficulties. Do we want to exhaust our energies in harassing people in the name of something? We are it's like a blind man trying to figure out something. We have to remove this blindness, Vinita, and that is what I mean when I talk about radical institutions, not that all the powers being vested to one person, because that solitary person is not going to be fountainhead of wisdom. He doesn't have everything at his disposal. We should not find out who should be held accountable. We should rather focus on what refined institutions we can build, what skills are required, because these are realities. This kind of covert war we are going to face as we start rising economically and otherwise, and what measures our adversaries are taking. So I don't believe in blanket oppression. Secondly, I would also believe that we have to bolster integrity of our institutions.
Mr. Ojha, do you firmly believe that there are conduits through which people can still send money to India? Of course they can.
Absolutely.
And cause upheaval, cause riots, stir up communal tensions. Okay.
Absolutely, Vinit. It's not possible your institutions you're talking about. Hawala transaction keeps on going, isn't it? It keeps on happening. And who are beneficiaries? Beneficiaries are many people who are in very strong and powerful position. So as long you keep few doors open and you would like to monopolize use of those doors, sorry, your adversaries may also take advantage of those doors and infiltrate something which you don't want. So bureaucratic levels, certainly I'm not saying these are irrelevant. These are very important. But this is where I mean when I say that, okay, we need a radical overhaul. Otherwise, slowly this thing is crippling us and we are not even conscious about it. Because after 5 years, I'm so happy, Vineet, that you brought it. I've tweeted this morning that an excellent obituary is no substitute to life. If something has happened, a lot of damage has been done, isn't it? And after that, we keep debating. We have already lost this war to a great extent, Vineet. And secondly, I would say we need to bolster credibility of our institutions. One state had intervened and they were trying to stop this riot or whatever. Our people should have believed that our state is absolutely right. There's nothing wrong. And secondly, I've always been mentioning that intent is not sufficient, rules are not sufficient. We need a lot of dynamism and efficiency and excellence in our institutions. And that is not being paid attention in this blind rush for privatizing everything. Because even if you're privatizing, you need far higher quality of regulation. So we have gone ahead with privatization, but we have not focused on enhancing quality of regulation. And that is the biggest contradiction that Indian state is facing with it. And we are not much mindful about it. Thank you. I conclude.
All right. Dr. Kohli wants to make a comment. Dr. Kohli, quickly, we've run out of time.
Yes, because I mean, what Mr. Oja is saying in general terms may be correct, but this is one exception. The exception is, I mean, if money has to come in, what do you want to check? You want to check who the sender is, what is the color of money, what's the quality of money, is it tainted money? Then the person receiving, the credibility of the person, the background check, there is something called word check. Have they got criminal records? Are they being shielded by somebody else? Are they being camouflaged by somebody else? You know, all these investigations in case of contributions have happened, and it's once bitten, twice shy. We've had so many terrorist and anti-India organizations functioning here. So therefore, I support a detailed investigation to any kind of contributions come here. Well, I said myself that गेहूं के साथ घुन भी पिसता है. Well, genuine contributions also suffer. Some welfare projects suffer. But what do? You have these nefarious kind of activities happening outside India, and they are being imported into the country through these funds. So I'm sorry. I mean, I would beg to differ here. That
Okay.
if it takes time, so be
I'll
it.
just last party, Vineet,
All
will
right.
give me.
We
I'm
can
not
agree
an
to disagree.
academic. Yes, no, I'm not an academic. I've been a practitioner, and that is why I'm saying we need very dynamic and strong capacity in this direction. And what I'm focusing, that we need to build such a strong capacity that these
All
things
right.
are not delayed,
Yes,
our
sir.
genuine citizens are not harmed.
Absolutely,
Thank you.
absolutely. So we have run out of time. Sorry. Mr. Dua, quickly, sir, if you can make your
All
statement in
that I
10
think-
seconds,
I
sir.
think-
If you can conclude in 10 seconds, sir.
Oja saying is that you have to not only check the money utilization or the expected use of money before sanctioning it, a point which Mr. Kohli was referring to, but also training your agencies.
Absolutely, sir.
The closest agency is the district magistracy. Working along with police, you need to be monitoring how that
Right,
money
sir.
is getting utilized rather than wait till the last.
Absolutely.
I would say our embassies abroad also, many of them have our police officers posted there for absolutely background checks and other things. They also, I'm sure, can keep on feeding the
Okay.
agencies which are monitoring it here.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.